And the United States warns that anything that China uses for their communications technologies, their state government and their military can listen in on the conversations going on. So that is a big conflict between the United States and China. Russia has been modernizing as well. They're focusing on hypersonics. They're focusing on cyber. We've heard a lot about election meddling in the West. That is a big focus for Russia. And they've also been working on intermediate range missiles. The United States recently pulled out of a deal with Russia because they said Russia's not complying with the treaty. The United States shouldn't either. And meanwhile, China, who was never in the INF treaty, had been building up its arsenal the whole time. Because it's not just Burkina Faso's problem. It's not just Niger's or Mali's problem. These terrorists are spilling across the borders, putting more people in to protect these oil fields. Are there going to be more troops now in Syria than there were before?
My expectation is that that it'll be fewer than what we had before, and they will be going home.
That is what the Syrian Democratic Forces are saying. They said that he was able to get a layout of the compound. He was able to tell them where the tunnels were located. And so what we are hearing is that some officials were concerned that al-Baghdadi may move, and so they decided they needed to act quickly. And so we got some intelligence on Thursday. That's what Vice President Mike Pence had said. And then President Trump was presented options on Friday. He made the decision. They got actionable intelligence, I've been told, on Saturday morning, and they acted on Saturday night. If the U.S. was to get the Russians a target, they couldn't guarantee that they'll actually hit the target with the types of bombs that they've been using. Let me put this into perspective for you, Vincent. If you look at the number of strikes in Somalia total in just 2 years, a little over 2 years of the Trump administration, it triples the number of strikes in Somalia carried out under the Obama administration. This training in Burkina Faso comes as the country is battling an insurgency of several al-Qaeda-linked groups. I spoke to one Burkinabe officer, and he told me the insurgency was like a toxin to his country. The U.S. ambassador to Burkina Faso, Andrew Young, told VOA that the situation, the threat was getting worse. And I spoke with Major General Marcus Hicks. He's the commander of Special Operations Forces on the continent, and he was very frank about the counter-terror war in West Africa.
I would tell you at this time we are not winning.
It seems like a typical morning in the Holmquist household. The kids pack their lunches, Carrie Holmquist makes her morning coffee, and then it's off to school. But there's one major difference. Tyler Holmquist, who works for U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, is still here. He's one of the hundreds of thousands of federal workers furloughed in the government shutdown, unable to work or collect pay.
And just start making adjustments. You start cutting, eating out, try to make less trips to town, save on gas.
Holmquist is a veteran, just like one of every 3 federal workers.
My dad.
He spent 24 years in the Marine Corps, continuing a family legacy of fighters.
And then behind you is my great-grandpa.
That dates back to World War I, and he views his job in the Department of Homeland Security as a continuation of his service.
Support and defend the Constitution, support and defend the nation, something a Marine could easily get behind.
Carrie has been out of the workforce for years, opting to stay home to care for the kids during Tyler's military deployments and the many family moves. But that soon could change.
Actually, I may be applying for jobs because, well, we don't know how long this is going to last.
Holmquist employer, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, is at the center of the political impasse fueling the furloughs.
You know what? A lot of the people that we're talking about in terms of pay, they agree with me.
You're those people he's referring to.
Right. I very much support a wall or barrier and better security. On the other hand, I'm starting to wake up at night and be stressed because we're not getting a paycheck.
They're hoping elected leaders will quickly do their jobs so Tyler can get back to his. Carla Babb, VOA News, Fredericksburg, Virginia. The call for more combat air power around the world has been answered time and again by Air Force fighter pilots. Years of training and millions of dollars are invested in each pilot, who maneuver high-tech aircraft which have evolved into flying supercomputers. You might expect there'd be plenty of fighter pilots ready to fly fighter jets like the F-22 Raptors behind me, but that's actually not the case. The U.S. Air Force is authorized to have 3,500 fighter pilots, but they're 725 fighter pilots short.
Hey, good afternoon. Have a seat. Relax.
Major General Scott Vanderham
So these are all the projects.
and Lieutenant General John Cooper are in charge of managing manpower for pilots and maintenance crew. They sat down together for the first time exclusively with VOA to discuss the growing crisis. How deep can this hole be dug before it has to be pulled out of and you can't get creative anymore and you just need more?
I'd say we're there. We have no margin, and that's what you're kind of speaking to. We have too few squadrons to meet the combatant commander's need.
The recent drawdown came about because of budget decreases, as the U.S. left Iraq in 2010 and was expected to leave Afghanistan.
The big variable is tempo. We didn't plan for ISIS. We planned to come home.
164 Bravo 7.
At Joint Base Langley Eustis, pilots say longer and more frequent deployments have devastated morale.
We were on 45-day rotations. Then they made it 90-day rotations. Then they made 120-day rotations. Now it's 6-month rotations with 1-year rotations sprinkled on top of it for key positions.
The deployments aren't the only thing causing pilots to quit. While stationed at home, pilots often have to work extra hours to finish administrative tasks, in addition to maintaining their flying skills.
I have a very high demand signal for my pilots, and I have not quite enough of them. This is where all the pucks start right here, and we start putting them on the board. So everybody here is scheduled, is doing something. There's no slop.
The Air Force is training about 135 more pilots in this fiscal year than 2 years ago, but that effort appears to have been undercut, since it only retained about 40% of fighter pilots up for contract renewals in 2016. It's almost a crisis within a crisis.
It is, because we need to retain, Carla, about 65%, about 2/3 of those pilots to fill the slots that they need to fill.
The fighter pilot shortage has spiked at a time when commercial airlines, which offer more stable schedules at home and the potential for higher pay, are looking for more pilots who love to fly.
If it's up to just me, I definitely would stay in, but my family has a vote, and so if they're doing well and they're enjoying where we're at, then we'll stay. If they want me to leave to do something else, then that's probably what I'll end up doing.
Former fighter pilot Tom Hunt left the Air Force in 2013 and now earns more money as a Washington, D.C. lawyer. He says the Air Force could resolve the shortage if it wanted to.
Some people say you can't throw money at everything. You can. You absolutely can. If you said the pilot bonus is now $500,000, single lump sum payment, I guarantee you'll solve your pilot shortage.
The Air Force is asking Congress for money to raise the bonus up to $48,000 per year, the first such bonus increase since 1999. The Pentagon hopes it will be enough to retain experienced pilots needed to keep up the Air Force's fast-paced operations and train the new recruits. For now, the generals say they are still able to carry out all the fighter jet sorties or flights needed on the front lines abroad. But if the efforts to resolve the fighter pilot crisis fail, they will quickly lose that ability.
We're looking at it right now, and we may have to, within the next calendar year, start to take some degradations in the frontline squadrons.
Those degradations mean the Air Force wouldn't be able to deploy its pilots as quickly, which brings the risk for more conflict casualties. And even if the Air Force does everything possible to increase fighter pilot numbers, the solution is more than a decade away. Carla Babb, VOA News, Joint Base Langley Eustis.